In the grand stretch of the Milky Way, where the Galactic Dominion had held sway for eons, a surprising new chapter was unfolding. The Dominion had crushed countless species under its iron-fisted rule, amassing a technological arsenal that was the stuff of nightmares. Their power was unrivaled, their control absolute, until today. Admiral Thera stood on the bridge of the Dominion's flagship, her 7 eyes narrowing as she scrutinized the holographic display. Red dots, representing an unknown fleet, had popped up at the edge of their territory as if they'd materialized from thin air. "What do you mean you can't identify them?" she snapped at her assistant, a quivering blob named Glorp, whose gelatinous form shivered with every syllable. "Sorry, Admiral," Glorp gurgled apologetically. "The ships don't match anything in our database. They look, well, kind of ancient." Thera's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Ancient? Show me." The hologram zoomed in, revealing a ragtag assortment of vessels that looked more at home in a scrapyard than in deep space. Their hulls were a hodgepodge of mismatched materials, reminiscent of something cobbled together by desperate scavengers rather than advanced engineers. "Our scans show their weapons are practically medieval," Glorp continued. "And their shields? Almost non-existent." A low, derisive laugh rumbled from Thera's throat. "And this is what has our border patrols in a tizzy? Pathetic. Find out where they're from and crush them. I want to know who dares to challenge the Dominion with such a pitiful force." As orders were issued, a young officer nervously approached, antenna twitching. "Admiral, we've identified the species. They're humans." The bridge fell silent. "Humans?" Thera's exoskeleton bristled. The last encounter with Earth dwellers had been decades ago, a minor skirmish on the outskirts of Dominion space. Despite being woefully outmatched with outdated technology, the humans had fought with a fierceness that had caught her off guard. "Like cornered animals with nothing to lose," Thera muttered, shaking off the unsettling memory. That was then, this was now. The Dominion had only grown stronger while the humans... Well, looking at their dilapidated fleet, it was clear they hadn't made much progress. "Deploy the 7th Fleet," Thera ordered. "Let's remind these humans where they stand in the galaxy." As the fleet mobilized, Thera couldn't shake a nagging suspicion. Why were the humans, after all this time, venturing so far from their home system with such a shoddy force? Little did she know, appearances could be deceiving. Aboard the lead ship of the human fleet, Captain Lisa Carter allowed herself a smug smile as she observed the approach of the Dominion vessels. The plan was falling into place perfectly. Years of meticulous preparation to craft the illusion of weakness were about to pay off. "They've taken the bait," her XO, Rick Tanner, reported with a grin. "Sensors show they've only deployed a fraction of their forces." "Overconfidence," Carter said, tapping her comm link. "All ships maintain formation. Remember your training. Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every species that has suffered under Dominion rule." A chorus of affirmatives rang through the channel. Carter felt a swell of pride as she looked at her crew. Scientists, engineers, soldiers. All volunteers who had worked tirelessly to give humanity a fighting chance against their galactic overlords. "Weapons hot," Carter ordered. "Let them fire first. We need to keep up the charade until the last possible moment." The bridge crew tensed as the enormous Dominion warships grew larger on their screens. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted as the lead Dominion ship fired, its energy weapons lancing toward the human fleet. And then, the facade of weakness fell away. The patchwork hulls of the human ships shimmered and dissolved, revealing sleek, advanced vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Shields snapped into place, effortlessly absorbing the Dominion's initial barrage. "Show them what humanity can really do," Carter commanded, her voice steady and resolute. The human fleet erupted in a dazzling display of firepower. Beams of concentrated energy, missiles that seemed to flicker in and out of existence, and swarms of autonomous drones poured forth. The Dominion ships, caught completely off guard, didn't stand a chance. Explosions erupted across space as the Dominion's pride, the 7th Fleet, was decimated by technology that should not have existed. Back on the Dominion flagship, Admiral Thera stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Her mandibles clicked rapidly as she tried to process what was happening. The human fleet, once mere space junk, had transformed into a formidable force. "This can't be happening," she hissed, her compound eyes straining to make sense of the chaos. What are we dealing with?" she demanded. The bridge was in turmoil. Officers scrambled to understand how they had been so thoroughly deceived. The Seventh Fleet, the jewel of the Dominion's armada, was being torn apart by weapons and technology that defied belief. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the dreadnought." A panicked voice cut through the confusion. "It's gone." Thera felt a cold dread settle in her thorax. The dreadnought was the most advanced warship in the Dominion Navy, capable of obliterating entire star systems. Now it had been swatted aside like a fly. "All ships, full retreat," Thera barked, her survival instincts overtaking her pride. "We need to regroup and reassess. Send word to High Command. The human threat is far greater than we anticipated." As the Dominion fleet turned tail and fled, leaving behind a battlefield strewn with the wreckage of their once proud ships, Thera's mind raced. How had the humans advanced so rapidly? What were their true intentions? Back on the human flagship, Captain Carter allowed herself a moment to breathe. The first phase of their operation had been a resounding success, but she knew better than to celebrate prematurely. This was just the opening move in a much larger game. "Status report," Carter called out, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Minimal damage across the fleet, Captain," Rick Tanner reported. "Our deception tech worked flawlessly. The Dominion never saw it coming." Carter's lips curled into a grim smile. "And the package?" "Delivered successfully," Rick confirmed. "Our virus is already working its way through their systems. We should have full access to the Dominion's network within hours." This had been the true purpose of their attack. While the Dominion reeled from the shock of facing an advanced human fleet, a digital infiltrator of unparalleled sophistication was burrowing into the heart of their vast information network. After all, knowledge was the ultimate weapon. "Excellent," Carter said. "Prepare for Phase 2. We need to push our advantage before they have time to regroup." As the human fleet began preparations for their next move, Carter retreated to her ready room. There, a holographic projection of the mastermind behind their success, Dr. Evelyn Brooks, awaited. The brilliant scientist whose breakthroughs had transformed humanity from a primitive species into a force capable of challenging the Galactic Dominion. Evelyn's weathered face bore the lines of decades of tireless work, but her eyes still burned with intense, almost manic energy. "Congratulations, Captain," she said, her voice crackling over the long-distance transmission. "Phase 1 was a complete success. The Dominion's arrogance has always been their weakness. Now it will be their undoing." Carter nodded, but a trace of concern laced her voice. "The technology worked perfectly, Doctor. But are we really ready for this? We're talking about taking on an empire that spans half the galaxy." Evelyn's expression hardened. "We have no choice, Lisa. You've seen the data we've gathered over the years. The Empire's atrocities, the species they've driven to extinction, the worlds they've stripped bare. If we don't stop them now, there won't be a galaxy left worth saving." Carter knew Evelyn was right. The decision had been made long ago when the true nature of the Empire had been revealed. Humanity could not stand idly by while countless civilizations suffered under the yoke of tyranny. "What's our next move, Doctor?" Carter asked, pushing aside her doubts. Evelyn's hologram flickered as she pulled up a star chart. "While the Empire is in disarray, we need to make contact with the resistance movements we've been nurturing in secret. It's time to ignite the spark of rebellion across the galaxy." As Evelyn laid out the plan, Carter felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. They were about to change the course of galactic history. The weight of that responsibility was immense, but so was the potential reward: freedom for countless beings across the stars. Meanwhile, deep in the heart of Dominion space, an emergency meeting of the High Council was underway. Aliens of various species, all high-ranking members of the Empire's ruling elite, argued passionately about how to respond to this unprecedented threat. Grand Vizier Krothak, a towering insectoid, slammed his fist on the table. We must obliterate these humans immediately. Gather every ship, every soldier. We will erase them from existence. Others advocated for caution, wary of the technological prowess the humans had displayed, but all were united in their fear and rage. The Dominion's superiority had been challenged, and that could not stand. As the debate raged, none of them noticed the subtle flicker in the room's holographic displays. The human eye had already infiltrated even this most secure of locations, silently gathering intelligence that would prove crucial in the coming conflict. The stage was set. Humanity had thrown down the gauntlet, and the Empire had no choice but to respond. In their arrogance and fear, they had overlooked a crucial fact. This was no longer just a battle between humans and the Dominion. Across the galaxy, on worlds long oppressed by Dominion rule, beings of all species watched and waited. News of the Empire's defeat spread like wildfire, carefully fanned by human operatives who had spent years building networks of trust and cooperation. Hope, long thought dead, began to flicker back to life in the hearts of billions. The Empire was not invincible. They could be fought. They could be beaten. As Captain Carter prepared her fleet for their next move, she gazed out at the star-studded expanse of space. Somewhere out there, countless beings were daring to dream of freedom for the first time in generations. "We won't let them down," she whispered to herself. "Whatever it takes, we'll see this through to the end." The battle for the galaxy had only just begun. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared for their next maneuver, the vast expanse of space seemed to hold its breath. Captain Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the flagship, her mind buzzing with the implications of their recent victory. The Dominion had been caught off guard, but the true test lay ahead. "Captain," Rick Tanner called out from his console, "we've received preliminary reports from the resistance networks. They're ready to move as soon as we give the word." Carter nodded, her eyes scanning the tactical display. "Excellent. It's time to show the galaxy that the Dominion is not as invincible as they'd like to think." Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, Dr. Evelyn Brooks was deep in strategy discussions with the United Earth Council. The chamber was a hive of activity as representatives from various nations and colonies reviewed the next steps. "We've established secure communication channels with key resistance movements," Evelyn said, her holographic form flickering with intensity. "Our operatives are already in place, ready to provide them with the necessary resources." Counselor James O'Malley, a grizzled veteran of interstellar politics, leaned forward. "What's the plan for engaging with these resistance groups? We need to ensure they're not just scrambling for scraps." Evelyn's expression was serious. "We're dividing our fleet into several task forces. Each will support resistance groups in different sectors. We'll provide them with advanced weaponry, tactical guidance, and, most importantly, the strategic intelligence they need to make an impact." Back on the flagship, Captain Carter was briefing her senior officers. "We've received reports that the Dominion's High Council is in chaos. They're scrambling to respond to our deception. This is our opportunity to exploit their disarray." "Where do we strike first?" Rick asked, his eyes alight with anticipation. Carter tapped the holographic display, which highlighted several key Dominion strongholds and strategic supply lines. "We'll target the Dominion supply depots and military installations in these sectors, disrupt their logistics, and we'll slow their response time." As the plan took shape, Carter couldn't help but feel a sense of both excitement and anxiety. The stakes were high, and the success of their mission would hinge on their ability to coordinate with the resistance and execute their strategy flawlessly. Across the galaxy, the signs of rebellion began to spark. On the swamp world of Arath, reptilian beings gathered in clandestine meetings, sharing tales of the human fleet's recent victory. The whispers of hope spread through their underground cities, inspiring a new wave of resistance. In the insectoid cities of Kral, workers buzzed with excitement. The Dominion's oppressive rule had kept them under a tight grip for generations. Now, with the news of the humans' triumph, they dared to imagine a future free from tyranny. On a small outpost in the edge of Dominion space, a group of miners, who had long labored under harsh conditions, received a covert message from a human operative. The message contained coordinates and instructions for a coordinated uprising. The miners, emboldened by the human success, began preparing for their part in the rebellion. As the human fleet advanced, their task forces executed their plans with precision. Resistance groups, armed with advanced technology and guided by strategic intelligence, launched coordinated strikes against Dominion targets. The Dominion's military installations, once considered impregnable, were now under assault from multiple fronts. Back on the flagship, Captain Carter and her crew watched as the tactical display filled with real-time updates. Dominion supply lines were being severed, and key installations were being overrun by the burgeoning rebellion. "Captain, we're getting reports of significant victories across multiple sectors," Rick reported. "The resistance groups are holding their ground and making considerable progress." Carter's face broke into a determined smile. "Keep pushing. We need to maintain the momentum. Our victories will inspire more systems to join the cause." As the weeks passed, the rebellion continued to gain traction. The Dominion's once unshakable grip on the galaxy was starting to show signs of strain. The tide was turning, and the galaxy's oppressed were rallying to the cause. Back on Earth, Dr. Evelyn Brooks was preparing for a critical video conference with the resistance leaders. The success of their operation depended on seamless coordination between all factions involved. "Good to see you all," Evelyn greeted the holographic projections of the resistance leaders. "Your efforts are making a difference. We're at a pivotal moment." A resistance leader from the arid planet of Zirion, his voice rough from years of oppression, spoke up. "We've encountered some challenges, but the support from your forces has been invaluable. The Dominion's hold is weakening." Evelyn nodded. "Keep up the pressure. We need to ensure that the momentum we've built is sustained. The Dominion will retaliate, and we must be prepared for their counterattacks." As the conference concluded, Evelyn turned to her aide, her face a mask of resolve. "We need to prepare for the inevitable backlash. The Dominion won't take this lying down." Back on the flagship, Captain Carter was reviewing the latest intel. "The Dominion is regrouping. We've detected increased activity around their high-security zones. They're preparing for a counteroffensive." Rick glanced at the display. "It's only a matter of time before they launch a major attack." Carter's eyes narrowed with determination. "Then we'll be ready. We've shown the galaxy that the Dominion can be defeated. Now we need to finish what we've started." As the human fleet and their allies prepared for the next phase of their campaign, the galaxy braced itself for the storm to come. The battle lines had been drawn, and the fight for freedom was far from over. The rebellion had ignited, and with each passing day, the flame of hope grew brighter in the hearts of those who had longed for liberation. The struggle was just beginning, and the outcome would determine the fate of countless worlds across the stars. The Dominion High Council's emergency meeting room was a storm of activity. Various alien dignitaries, their features a mix of anxiety and anger, argued vehemently over the recent humiliations and the necessary responses. At the center of the chaos stood Grand Vizier Vorthak, a hulking, insectoid figure whose rage was palpable. "We must act decisively," Vorthak thundered, slamming his clawed appendage onto the table. "These humans have proven themselves to be a significant threat. Our response must be swift and overwhelming." A voice from the other end of the chamber spoke up. Counselor Alia, a sharp-eyed reptilian with a reputation for cautious diplomacy. "We should consider a more measured approach. The humans have shown tactical ingenuity, and their allies seem to be spreading their influence. A rash attack could push more systems into rebellion." Vorthak's eyes narrowed. "Measured? We have already lost several critical installations. This is no time for diplomacy." As the debate continued, a Dominion strategist named Saran, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. "With all due respect, Grand Vizier, I suggest we deploy our most advanced warships and engage in a coordinated counteroffensive. We need to reassert our dominance and push back the human-led resistance." Vorthak's eyes gleamed with approval. "Very well. Prepare the Imperial fleet for an immediate strike. We will teach these rebels the true meaning of our power." In the meantime, Captain Lisa Carter's flagship, the Eagle's Pride, was cruising through the vast emptiness of space, its crew preparing for the next stage of their operation. Carter stood on the bridge, her face illuminated by the glow of the tactical display. "Captain, we've received intel from our resistance allies," Rick Tanner said, glancing at his console. "The Dominion is mobilizing for a counteroffensive. They're pulling together their most advanced warships." Carter's eyes hardened with determination. "We anticipated a response. This is our chance to solidify our gains and further destabilize their control. We need to prepare our forces for a defensive posture while supporting our allies." The human fleet, in coordination with the resistance groups, began reinforcing their positions. The resistance forces, now equipped with advanced weaponry and strategic guidance, were strategically positioned to defend against the impending Dominion assault. On the planet of Rylus, a core resistance stronghold, the local commander, General Xander, was rallying his troops. His base was a hive of activity as soldiers and engineers worked feverishly to fortify their defenses. "General, our scouts report Dominion warships en route," one of his officers said, tension evident in her voice. "They're coming in force." Xander's face was a mask of resolve. "We've trained for this. We've anticipated their aggression. Deploy all defensive systems and prepare for the counterattack. We will not yield an inch of our ground." As the Dominion fleet approached, a massive armada of sleek, menacing warships emerged from hyperspace, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. The Dominion ships were heavily armed, their energy weapons crackling with lethal intent. Captain Carter's fleet, having established defensive positions around key resistance strongholds, awaited the assault. The tactical display on the bridge of the Eagle's Pride was a flurry of activity as Dominion warships engaged with human and resistance forces. "Hold your positions," Carter commanded. "Let them come to us. We need to draw them into our defensive perimeters." The Dominion fleet opened fire, their weaponry lighting up the void with brilliant flashes of energy. The resistance forces, armed with the latest technology and guided by human strategists, returned fire with equal ferocity. The battle erupted into a chaotic ballet of explosions and laser beams. On the surface of Rylus, General Xander's defenses held firm. The Dominion's assault was relentless, but the resistance forces, supported by human technology, repelled the attacks with tenacity. In the midst of the battle, Carter's flagship moved with precision, coordinating strikes against Dominion warships attempting to breach the defenses. Her tactical acumen and the advanced capabilities of her fleet turned the tide of the engagement. "Captain, the Dominion's forces are starting to falter," Rick reported, a note of cautious optimism in his voice. "Our coordinated counterattacks are having an impact." Carter nodded. "Maintain the pressure. We need to push them back and secure our gains." As the battle raged on, the Dominion fleet began to show signs of disarray. The coordinated resistance efforts and the unexpected effectiveness of the human technology had thrown their plans into disarray. Back in the Dominion High Council chamber, Vorthack's fury was palpable. "These rebels have exceeded all expectations. We must recalibrate our strategy. Reinforcements are en route, but we need to reevaluate our approach." Counselor Alia took the opportunity to speak. "This is the time to reassess our strategy. We must focus on diplomatic solutions while continuing our military campaign. If we push too hard, we risk alienating neutral systems and galvanizing more support for the rebels." Vorthack's anger simmered, but he nodded reluctantly. "Very well. Increase efforts on both fronts. Strengthen our military resolve and initiate diplomatic outreach to mitigate the growing rebellion." As the Dominion reassessed their approach, Captain Carter and her fleet continued to fortify their positions. The resistance, emboldened by their recent successes, prepared for the next phase of their campaign. On the bridge of the Eagle's Pride, Carter reviewed the latest reports. "We've managed to hold our ground and inflict significant damage on the Dominion's forces. Our victory today is a testament to our combined strength and resolve." Rick glanced at the display. "Captain, our allies are reporting increased activity from the Dominion's diplomatic channels. They're seeking to negotiate." Carter's face showed a flicker of surprise. "Negotiate? They must be feeling the pressure. We'll need to be cautious. Let's see what they have to offer, but we must remain vigilant." As the battle for the galaxy continued, the balance of power was shifting. The Dominion, once thought to be invincible, was now grappling with a burgeoning rebellion that threatened to unravel their empire. The humans and their allies stood firm, their resolve strengthened by their victories. The galaxy's oppressed began to see a glimmer of hope, and the struggle for freedom was far from over. Captain Carter and her crew prepared for the challenges ahead, knowing that the road to liberation was fraught with peril. But as they gazed out at the stars, they were united in their determination to see their mission through to the end. The fight for the galaxy had entered a new phase, and the future of countless worlds hung in the balance.